G'day, Bomber fans. Strap yourselves in. We've got a tough week ahead of us. It is Essendon versus Geelong on Saturday. It is David versus Goliath. You know what? It's David's younger, unathletic, lesser-looking brother versus Goliath. Geelong really do scare Essendon fans. They've been beating us up for years, and unfortunately, on Saturday, it's lunch money time. The Cats, they're hungry, they need a feed, and we're that nerdy kid who happens to be walking in the bathroom as the big bully's leaving. Yeah, this could be brutal. It could be a brutal game of footy. It's a big test, though. So, let's talk about it. Essendon up against Geelong, but first, some votes from the King's birthday. Alrighty, easy week for votes, because we didn't disagree. Martin had the 3, Dersma in Game 100 had 2, 2 Meter Peter had 1, and Will Setterfield was the role player for shutting out Paddy Cripps. I don't even think there was really anyone else in contention, aside from Guelphy, who was a couple of votes behind Setterfield for the role player. The overall tally, how about this, guys? We have a new leader. Nick Martin has jumped to top spot of the Everything Essendon Player of the Year count. He is on 26. Merritt is 3 votes behind. And then from there, it is a logjam for the podium. Dersma's up there now. Durham's has a little holiday, so he won't poll. Caldwell, Reid, and Wright are pretty high despite missing games. And then you've got McGrath, Perkins, and Nate Caddy rounding out the 10. Keep up the votes. All right, Essendon against Geelong. It is one of the more one-sided matchups in the AFL. I cannot remember a time in my life where Essendon have gone into one of these games as the favourites. I don't think we would have. I remember wins. We've won 3 times since 2010, but we haven't been the favourite in those games. And the thing is, right, the Cats don't just beat us, they annihilate us. I said they've won the last 7 games, I think, or maybe I didn't, but they've won the last 7 games. The smallest win from those 7 games was 28 points, which is not really a small win. The average margin from those games was 50 points. So, yeah, we usually lose big. If we're going off history, we probably lose by quite a bit. But history doesn't always mean, much. Sometimes it depends on form. And yeah, if we're talking form, I mean, the Cats, they're in the top 4. They've won 5 of their last 6, including a win against the Pies. We've lost our last 2. Realistically, we don't need to go into history too much because the Cats have us covered. We don't need to go into form because the Cats have us covered. They've pretty much, we're looking at a premiership contender up against an injury-depleted Essendon who probably weren't going to be making finals with a fully fit list anyway. This gives me Bulldogs 2.0 vibes. And you know those Geelong games where they just beat up on us because they're bored? It is giving me those vibes. So how can we try and get close to the Cats? Okay, so Geelong, unfortunately, this isn't like Collingwood where it's, an ultra-tight defence. You can kind of get within a respectable margin of the Pies if you want because their strength is their defence. But the Cats are a scoring juggernaut. They are the second highest scoring team in the competition right now. They average almost 100 points a game. And keep in mind, that's after they've played everyone in the top 8. So they're not just preying on bad teams. They score heavily against good sides too, which does not bode well for us. They've got the Coleman medal leader, Jeremy Cameron, up forward. He is just about the best player in the comp, I'd say. And then you've got, other scorers like Ollie Dempsey on the wing, Tyson Stengel, Paddy Dangerfield. They're far behind Jezza, but they've all got more goals than our highest goal scorer. So it's annoying because even if we somehow shut down Jeremy Cameron, which I don't think we do, but even if we do it, we've still got to contain Danger, Dempsey, Stengel, Close and Myers. All these elite forward half players. They've got so many threats in the forward half. And our back line, we are missing 4 of our best back 6. And to throw a spanner in the works even more, we're missing the depth options to replace them as well. Fans may wonder, why we're doing things like playing Merritt in defence, playing Pryor on a player 20 centimetres taller than him. It is because we don't really have many other options right now. We're being forced to play defenders in huge mismatches. Seeing Jackson Pryor against Hudson O'Keefe last week was borderline laughable because he was a whole head, or probably more than a head smaller than him. The bloke took 5 contested marks just because of his height alone, O'Keefe. And you've got Laverty leading a key defence despite being our 5th string key defender. I didn't think he was going to be playing games if our defensive situation wasn't as dire as this. I've said this stuff a lot, in every review. I'm just trying to fill in our opponents, any rogue Cats fans, to know about this defensive situation because it is dire. It is really bad. And, whereas against the Blues, we managed because it's Carlton and the Lions, it was wet and their height isn't that effective. This week, we're going up against a proper star-studded forward line on a dry Saturday afternoon. Laverty on Jeremy Cameron is a scary prospect. The thing is, we can't do anything else. And I think there comes a time where it just goes wrong, because I don't see how we can handle forward lines the way our defense is set up right now. So for me, right, there are just going to be things that we can't control in this game. You know, if Jeremy Cameron takes 30 contested marks, kicks 10 goals, we can blame that on the defensive situation. You know, I don't think we'd leave the game saying Essendon are in a bad place for the future because Jeremy Cameron got a hold of us while all our defenders were down. So I think that's safe to say. You know, if their forward line just towers over us, I cannot be too unhappy. So in this game, what I'm going to be looking at, and things I can be unhappy about, are things that we can control and how we go into those areas. You know, I'm not really going to be too worried about the scoreboard in a match like this. That is my coping mechanism. But for this game, it is about controlling the controllables, and a good place to start is the midfield. We have been strong in there at times. Durham missing is going to hurt, but it gives us a chance to test new structures, new players, flick the magnets around. I'd like to see our midfield really give it a crack and get things going in there, get us territory, at least make the Cats sweat a bit in defence. And I mean, we could just over-possess the ball, you know, make sure the Cats don't get as many looks because we are holding onto the footy, you know, protecting the scoreboard, chipping it around, playing boring footy. But, you know, I think we have to come to terms with some of these impending results. And even if we lose by a lot, it would be cool to see some synergy with our forward line and our midfield, trying some risks, some excitement, you know, try some new things, see how we can score against the top side, see if we can get moments out of Caddy and Kako and Daywicks, these younger guys, see how they cope with the moment, because it's a pretty big one. Yeah, for me, if the ball goes over our head, you know, counter-attacking footy from Geelong, if they kick 10 goals off turnover from the defensive half, at least it means we're probably trying tricky things up forward, which I think we kind of have to. We have to treat this as almost a training drill, because, you know, the result, obviously, it does matter to the players, but to us fans, I am just looking at the things we can control. I don't think we can control too much in defence, but forward of the ball, that is what I'm going to be watching out for. Something else we can control is intent. The best way to force a blowout is to not show up, you know, drop your heads early, and you know, there's showing up, and then there's showing up early. Because the last few weeks, or the whole season really, we have been a slow starting team. There has been some admirable losses which look better because of the comeback nature. But if we were, you know, starting as we finished against the Lions and the Blues, we would have 2 more wins on the column, you know. And if we start slowly against the Cats, let them pile on early goals, there won't be an admirable loss, you know, that we wouldn't come from behind to force a close one. It would just get uglier. We really cannot afford another sluggish start to the game. So how do we get out of the gates early? I think it's important to get ascendancy in the guts, as I said. It's all about pressure around the ball, tackling pressure, forcing the Cats into mistakes, forcing them on the back foot, not letting them have time around the footy, not letting Max Holmes and others, you know, run freely around the ground. Kind of like what we did against Port at Marvel. And look, it is tough to compare Port and Geelong, but if we make this game scrappy, contest heavy, throw bodies around, pressure the footy, pressure the forward half, lock the ball in our forward 50, even if it's at the expense of a number up forward or something, you know, that'll at least put the game in the balance a bit more, because our outside footy is not going to stack up against theirs if this game is bruise free. The best way to, you know, make this game a big loss for us is to not show much intent. So this has to be a hot game of footy with high pressure ratings. It might make our disposals rushed and look worse and sloppy, but it'll probably do the same for the Cats as well. Yeah, I mean, realistically, we're up against it. I've enjoyed our competitive form. I want it to stay, but I am not confident that it will here. I think this would be a really impressive performance if we were to close a margin within, you know, even 40 points. I might be cynical here, but I just think the Cats could be smashing us in this game. I don't really see many ways that we can go out and get a win. A lot of it depends on Geelong. You know, maybe they're complacent. Maybe they give us a sniff. Maybe they rest some players. But I think they're just too professional to do that. So yeah, for me, it's about closing the gap. I said at the start of the year, I think on the Sash podcast actually, I said that I want to be having close losses against great teams. I specifically mentioned Brisbane and Geelong, those 2 teams. We got the close one against the Lions. Maybe the Bombers hear my wishes and give us a tight one against the Cats too. Because if we go out and challenge Geelong after challenging Brisbane a fortnight ago and almost beating Carlton, that is massive given what we have at our disposal. Because when those injuries, you know, occurred after the Richmond game, I was thinking it was going to be a brutal month of footy. It hasn't been so far. It might turn here. You know, I think if a team was going to beat up on us, it's Geelong. But, maybe the boys, they show a bit of heart and give us some real promise for the future. But for me, it's about two things this game. I'm not focused on the win. I'm focused on the intent to win and how close we can get. But also, just the kids, This is a fun period because we get to see the kids go at it, get some games under the belt. It would be cool to see more glimpses from Caddy and Kako up forward, Day Wicks up forward. You've got Johnson and Clark settling in really well. I don't see how they get dropped anytime soon. Lemanuel surely plays again. I thought he was good on debut. I just want to see these guys up and about because realistically, if we win this game, it doesn't change anything for season 2025. We are not going to win the grand final. The result does not matter much in the grand scheme of things. But for season 2026 and 2027, it is games like these that are actually really important. This is what I'm looking at. It's all about how we play this game and what we take from it. It's a week-by-week thing as we build for the future. Okay, team news. Look at that unavailable column. Every week, by the way, I have to change the font even smaller because it doesn't fit on the page. The defence is up against it. The forwards and the rucks are up against it. Durham's out for 2 weeks. That hurts. Redmond is also injured. He's back after the bye. So there's going to be one change with Durham because Redmond was laid out anyway. I think either Sardis or Shield come in for Durham. I'm going to annoy some people. I think Shield was the carryover emergency, and I think he's at least a bit of difference in there, because I just don't know how Sardis can play in the same midfield with Setterfield and Parrish. That would make us pretty one-dimensional. But yeah, Shield in for Durham, I say, and a few cheeky shouts. Liam McMahon is close to being ready, I think. Blackiston behind the ball didn't look bad either. There's a world where Liam McMahon could be the in, play him in the defensive half and bring... like a merit up the ground, but then our ball use is bad. It's tough. Look, whatever we're doing it because we have to. That's what I think. We just don't have many options with our ins and outs. We could, put out Perkins and Hobbs back into the VFL because they haven't looked as good in the last few weeks. But then, who do we bring in? There are definitely, there are options. They're just not amazing options. As for Geelong, Bailey Smith and Shannon Neal are both tests entering this game. I'm assuming they play, but I also think the Cats won't risk them for a game like this if they're not 100%. That could play into our hands in the case of an upset, the Cats resting players. But yeah, I don't think we make too many changes just because it's too hard to really replace the players we have that are underperforming. Like who would come in for Perkins? We would have to restructure. It's not always as easy as just replacing someone with a player who's performing well in the VFL. I've seen many say, even last week, Sardis should come in for Kako. That doesn't work like that. So yeah, I don't know if we're going to be crazy with the debuts this week. We'll see. All right, prediction. Who's going to win this game of footy? I'm going to tip the Cats. Even the most optimistic of Essendon fans will tip Geelong. I would love to make it a close game. That is my goal. I want to, what I want? I want to be nervous because right now I am not really too nervous about the result. I am obviously expecting something not ideal, but I'm not nervous, because nerves come when there's proper, there's stakes on the line. Like, for example, Brisbane. I wasn't really nervous going into that game. I was nervous by the end of it. If I'm feeling the same way about this game, if it's the fourth quarter and I'm biting my nails, that means that the Bombers are doing something right, okay? So that's what I want. I want to go into this game nervous. I want the Bombers, I want us to make the game tough for the Cats to win, start hot early, finish strong, heat around the pill, reduce the margin. But unfortunately, I just think they win and win comfortably, Geelong. We're due a belting, and this is the team who love to give it to us. I'm tipping the Cats by 60 points. Realistically, it could be more, but it also could be less. I hope I'm wrong. It could be less. I just think that the Cats, they're too good a team, and we're trying really hard right now. We're playing some admirable footy, but yeah, it's going to be a tough game. That is all. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. I hope you've enjoyed the negative Nancy review. Get out to the game if you can. Support the boys. A good way to, make this a big loss is to not show up and have no fans there. I loved the support that we had against Carlton. We were a really loud crowd. That was great. So yeah, like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new, get out to the game, and as always, go Bombers.